Hello, welcome back. So, as we press on into lockdown, I thought I'd do a little video on some of the things I keep in the back of my car. I'll share the fruits of my slightly bitter experience with some more than slightly dodgy cars over the years, and a few of the things that it's worth having around that have got me out of trouble on occasion. So, let's start with this. You can buy it from Halfords. I don't think it's particularly expensive. It's an emergency puncture repair thing, and the idea is that if you connect it up to the tyre, you can squirt it in and it will re-inflate the tyre and fill it with its gunge and seal the puncture. Now, the tyre has pretty much had it once you've done that to it, but as a little device for bailing yourself out and getting back on the road, quite a useful thing to have. Now, I've never actually used one of these things in anger, but there was a 2-for-1 deal on them at Halfords, so I got one for me, one for my mother. I think it's particularly handy to advise family members to carry if they're not particularly handy with the tools. It's also the minimum amount of time you can spend exposed to danger trying to do this at the roadside, because you just screw that in, pull the tab, and there you go. Now, obviously, you need a different size can for different tyres, and it's possible that these things can expire. I can't quite see what that date written on there is, but that's thing number one. Not expensive. Now, thing number two, I've blogged about this before, is my battery booster. Now, I'm very fond of this, and this has actually bailed me out on one occasion with my old Golf GTI. We were on a weekend away, out in the middle of nowhere over in Hampshire, and it was a Sunday morning, and we had to be out of our Airbnb by 10 a.m, and my car wouldn't start. I think what had happened was that someone had left a door slightly ajar, or the boot lid, and a light had just run down the battery over 24 hours or so. But I was able to reach under my driver's seat and pull out this. This is made by DB Power, and it looks like a fatter version of one of those battery banks you use to charge your phone. And indeed, it has USB ports on it for doing exactly that. But this baby costs a bit more than your typical battery bank, because it comes with these heavy-duty crop clips, and through these it can whack out enough amps, enough current, allegedly to jumpstart petrol engines up to 6 litres in capacity. Now, I've never tried it on a lorry to see if that's really true, but it did jumpstart my 2-litre Golf GTI perfectly. The most common cause of breakdown and call-outs for the AA and people like that is a flat battery. Now, I did have a breakdown cover of some sort at the time, but on a Sunday morning in the middle of nowhere, it'll probably take them 2 hours to get someone to you. This thing got us all rolling with barely 5 minutes delay. It's absolutely fantastic, and it costs about the same as a year's worth of breakdown cover, so every car should carry one of these things. The only cautionary note I would sound is that if you switch it on, there's a little indicator on the back here which tells you how many percent it's charged. Now, this thing won't stay charged forever, particularly not if you've had it rolling around in a cold car boot for months. Unfortunately, the readout there does seem to lie. It seems to stay at 100% even when it's not, and then if you plug a phone or something into it and it actually tries to draw from it, it suddenly revises its thoughts and goes, I'm on 4%. So, in order to not be caught short when you need it, you need to bring this indoors every few months and just use the mains cable to juice it up. It does actually come with a cable for charging from the cigarette lighter on the car, so I suppose that's also a possibility, but I've never actually used that. You can see it's still cable tied together. It just feels a little bit counterproductive to be sucking loads of current out of the car battery to fill this thing up. And plus, this takes, I think I leave it overnight to charge up when I bring it inside, so I'm guessing it would take several quite long car journeys to fully juice itself from the cigarette lighter. I'm also fond of this thing because it was one of the very rare occasions where I actually managed to come out on the right side of an eBay deal. I bought this, I think it had been used once by the previous owner just to jump their flat battery, and then they sold it on, so I got it for a bit less than it cost new, and it was in basically as new condition, so yay. as I say, normally I never quite manage to pull that off with eBay. It's normally a case of getting a bit screwed in terms of the state of things, or them not being quite right. Just take a moment to slide all this back together properly. It's a little bit fiddly to make sure it's all in the case as it should be, because there's actually quite a few bits in there. However, if one perseveres and just tucks it all in like so, then there we go. Not terribly perfect, but two halves sit together. It's quite a robust carry case, and then you just pop that in your boot or under your passenger seat, and it's great. Now, the third and final tool that I carry with me everywhere, cardboard box is a bit battered. I think some screen wash got spilt on it, but this is a digital tyre inflator, and again, it's not that expensive to have one of these. I can't remember what it cost me, but, you know, it was tens of pounds rather than hundreds. And what you do is from one side, you unreel the sort of braided line here, which goes into the tyre that you're inflating. Just goes under there. And then from the other edge here, you unravel this and plug it into your cigarette lighter. And there's a decent length of cable on there. I'm not going to read it all out because it's a bit fiddly to get back in. You can set your tyre pressure, target tyre pressure in bar or PSI on the screen with the buttons on the front there, and then you hit a button and it fills her up. And this actually got me out of trouble a few weeks ago, coming down the M40, a tyre that I'd had recently fitted. So most modern vehicles have a tyre pressure monitoring system, and it'll flash a little light on your dashboard if the computer detects that one of your tyres has dropped in pressure from when the system was last reset. Sadly, although it must know, because there's a sensor in all four tyres, I've never seen one that actually tells you which tyre it's complaining about. So I had to go round all of them with this. Now, you're not really supposed to inflate tyres when they're hot because you've just been driving, because obviously the pressures inside them will be different, and the settings you're given by your manufacturer are the settings when they're cold. But what I did was I just went around and plugged this in just to get a reading off each of the four tyres to see what pressure they were at. Found which was the odd one out, brought it up to the same level as the other three, and that was fine. And that, you know, I reset the tyre pressure stuff and it all stayed off. It's been fine ever since. So again, it wouldn't have been that difficult to call out a breakdown service, but do you really want to for something that you can fix yourself with a little thing you can carry? I've had occasions in the past when I've been out with the walking club in the middle of nowhere and my various cars have let me down, and somebody had one of these, and it just makes so much sense to be able to sort this kind of thing out for yourself. Now, there are a couple of gimmicky features on these things that I've never used. Both the battery booster and the tyre inflator that I showed you there can be used as lights. So you plug them in and then you can set them up on the road behind your car and they sort of flash to kind of show you've broken down, which I suppose could be useful if you're unlucky enough to conk out in an unlit country lane or something, but I don't know, that's not what I bought them for. I've never actually tried to use those features, and I don't like to use the power bank for anything other than jump starting, because you start charging phones off it and whatnot, it won't have enough stuff in it when you need it. On the one occasion I used it for real in anger, it started at 100%, jump starting the 2-litre engine on my Golf GTI, drop that down, I think, to about 40%, so you might get a couple of jumps, or maybe even 3 of a more modestly sized vehicle out of it, but it's basically one hit, and it will get quite hot if you whacking out that level of current, so you want to be a bit careful. I think the instructions specify not to leave some cooling off time, and so forth. So there you are, that's what I keep in the boot of my car. I should think the contents of that bag that I've just put them all back in probably cost me less than a couple of £100 in total, as I picked up at least one of those things second-hand, and it's, you know, it takes up a bit of boot space in a small hatchback, but they're all really useful things, and I say 2 of them have just got me out of trouble and back on my way with an absolutely minimal delay. Time is valuable. Have a think about it. Thanks for watching.